The email arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, just as Sienna Moretti was boxing up fabric samples from her Chicago atelier. Her hands trembled as she read the message for the third time. Certain she'd misunderstood something crucial. Dear Ms. Moretti, you have been personally selected to design the wedding gown for the Blackwell Montgomery union. A car will collect you Thursday morning. Compensation: $250,000. Non-negotiable. Terms attached. Sienna's phone buzzed immediately. Grace, her assistant and only employee, was calling despite the late hour. Tell me you saw it, Grace said breathlessly. Tell me this isn't a prank. I'm looking at it right now. Sienna sank onto a bolt of ivory silk, her mind racing. $250,000. That sum would cover 6 months of back rent, replace her broken equipment, and give her studio a genuine second chance. But why me? The Blackwell family could hire anyone in the world. Who cares why? Sienna, the landlord gave us until Friday. This is literally a miracle. Except Sienna didn't believe in miracles anymore. Not after her mentor had stolen her designs 3 years ago. Not after her partner had emptied their joint account and disappeared. Not after she'd poured every penny into this studio only to watch it crumble around her. There's something wrong here, Sienna murmured, scrolling through the contract. This is too much money for one dress, and the timeline is impossible. The wedding is in 6 weeks. Then you'd better pack fast. Thursday morning arrived wrapped in October fog. The black town car that collected Sienna looked like it belonged in a funeral procession, which felt oddly appropriate. She watched Chicago's skyline disappear through the tinted windows. Her portfolio clutched against her chest like armor. The Blackwell Estate materialized through the Virginia countryside like something from another century. Stone walls, sweeping gardens, windows that gleamed like judging eyes. Sienna had designed dresses for heiresses before, but this was different. This was old money, the kind that didn't just by influence it inherited it. A woman in her 50s waited at the entrance. Her silver hair pulled back severely, her black dress probably worth more than Sienna's car. Everything about her posture screamed disapproval. Ms. Moretti, the woman's voice could have frozen champagne. I am Cecilia Blackwell. I hope you understand the magnitude of this opportunity. I do, Mrs. Blackwell. I sincerely doubt that. Cecilia's gaze swept over Sienna's simple wool coat and boots with obvious disdain. My late husband had peculiar ideas about giving chances to emerging designers. I would have preferred someone established. Then why am I here? The question hung in the cool air. Cecilia's expression hardened, but before she could respond, voices echoed from inside the mansion, one sharp and female, one deep and measured. I don't care what he wants, Cecilia. This is my wedding, and I refuse to be humiliated by some nobody designer. Jade, please be reasonable. Reasonable. Your son chose her without consulting me? Sienna's stomach dropped. The groom chose her. Just like Grace had joked about, except this wasn't funny anymore. A stunning woman burst through the doorway, all sharp angles and barely contained fury. She wore a cream cashmere ensemble that probably cost $5,000, and her blonde hair was styled with aggressive perfection. This had to be Jade Montgomery. Behind her, moving with the exhausted grace of someone who'd fought this battle many times before, came a man who made Sienna forget to breathe. Damien Blackwell was tall, dark-haired, with the kind of face that belonged on currency, all sharp jawlines and serious eyes, the color of storm clouds. He wore his tailored suit like he'd been born in it, but something in his expression suggested he'd rather be anywhere else. You must be Sienna. His voice was surprisingly warm, completely at odds with the tension crackling around them. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Blackwell. Opportunity? Jade's laugh was vicious. Is that what we're calling this disaster? Cecilia, I want her gone. Call Marchetti. Call someone who actually knows what they're doing. Jade. Damien's voice remained calm, but something dangerous flickered beneath the surface. We've discussed this. No, you declared it. There's a difference. Jade turned to Sienna with a smile that promised violence. Since my fiancé has lost his mind, let me be clear about expectations. I want a dress that makes a statement. Traditional, elegant, dripping with crystals. I have the exact design picked out. She pulled up a photo on her phone. This. Exactly this. Can you copy it, or should we stop wasting time? Sienna studied the image. It was a spectacular gown, layers of tulle, thousands of Swarovski crystals, a train that went on forever. It was also a design she recognized from Milan Fashion Week 2 years ago, a dress that had taken 6 months and 20 seamstresses to create. That's a beautiful dress, Sienna said carefully. But it wouldn't suit. I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm telling you what I want. This was the moment. Sienna could nod, agree, take the money, and save her studio. She could spend 6 weeks copying someone else's vision and walk away with enough cash to start over. Or she could tell the truth. With respect, Ms. Montgomery, if you just want that dress copied, you don't need me. Any competent seamstress could do it. Sienna met those hostile eyes steadily. But that's not why I was chosen, is it? The silence that followed felt like glass breaking. Then Damien smiled a real smile that transformed his entire face. Exactly right. This is absurd. Jade's voice rose. Cecilia, I will not be spoken to this way by the help. Jade, perhaps we should, Cecilia began. No, Damien's voice cut through the chaos. Sienna is correct. I chose her because her work is bold and original. If you want a copy of someone else's dress, then this arrangement won't work. But if you want something extraordinary, something that people will remember, then let her design. How dare you? Jade's face flushed with anger. This is my wedding day, Damien. Mine, not yours. Not hers, mine. Actually, a new voice interrupted. Amused and slightly raspy. It's supposed to be both of yours. If I remember correctly how weddings work. A man in his 40s appeared from the hallway. Tall and lean with Damien's, same dark hair but a lighter expression. He carried himself with the ease of someone who'd never had to fight for his place in the world. Uncle Oliver, Damien's shoulders relaxed fractionally. Perfect timing, as always. Someone has to referee these delightful family gatherings. Oliver extended his hand to Sienna with genuine warmth. Oliver Blackwell. Welcome to the madhouse, Miss Moretti. I hope you're brave or possibly insane. Still deciding, Sienna admitted, earning a bark of laughter. I like her already. Oliver turned to his nephew. Damien, your mother needs you in the study. Something about the seating chart? Jade, darling, didn't you have that magazine interview at 3? Jade's eyes narrowed, but she was too well-bred to argue in front of witnesses. This conversation isn't over, she said to Damien before sweeping away in a cloud of expensive perfume. Cecilia's expression remained glacial. Ms. Moretti, dinner is at 7. Formal attire. Don't be late. She followed her future daughter-in-law inside, leaving Sienna alone with the two men. Damien looked at her with something that might have been hope or possibly desperation. I apologize for that reception. This is ... complicated. Complicated is one word for it, Sienna replied. Mr. Blackwell, why am I really here? And please don't say it's because you liked my work. He studied her for a long moment, those storm-gray eyes searching for something. 6 months ago, my father died. His will contained a clause requiring me to marry within 1 year to inherit control of the company. My mother arranged this engagement 3 weeks later. The wedding is in 6 weeks, whether I want it or not. The words landed like stones. That's archaic? Cruel? Yes. Damien's smile was bitter, but it's also legally binding. So here we are, in the dress. The dress is the one thing I get to choose. He pulled out his phone, showing her a screenshot of an article from 2 years ago. It featured one of Sienna's early designs, a gown she'd created for an independent film premiere. Asymmetrical, daring, nothing like traditional bridal wear. When I saw this, I thought, here's someone who doesn't do what's expected. Someone who might actually understand what I'm trying to say. Which is what? Damien looked at the mansion behind them, at the prison of privilege and expectation. That I'm not my father, that this marriage might be arranged, but the dress doesn't have to be another lie. I'll let you two talk. Sienna, your room is in the east wing. 3rd door on the left. Try to relax before dinner. You'll need your strength. As Oliver disappeared inside, Sienna turned back to Damien. "Mr. Blackwell, Damien, please." "Damien, I need this job. Desperately. But I also need you to understand that if you want me to design something meaningful, your fiancé has to agree. I can't create art in a war zone. Leave Jade to me." Something fierce flashed across his features. "Just promise me you won't back down. Everyone else in my life has already chosen what's easy over what's right. Please, don't be another one." Sienna thought of her locked studio, of Grace frantically negotiating with their landlord, of the 10 years she'd spent building something only to watch it crumble. She thought of all the times she'd compromised, played it safe, done what was expected. "I promise," she heard herself say. "But if this falls apart, it won't." Damien's certainty was almost convincing. "I won't let it." As he walked back toward the mansion, Sienna wondered which of them was lying him to her, or both of them to themselves. The October wind picked up, carrying the scent of coming rain. And somewhere in the distance, door slammed shut, with a sound like a trap closing. She picked up her bags and followed him inside, each step taking her deeper into a world where the price of salvation might be higher than she'd ever imagined. The dining room at Blackwell Estate could have housed a small village. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across china so delicate it looked like it might shatter from a harsh word. Sienna sat at the far end of the table. Geography that made her position abundantly clear: she was staff, not family. Jade had changed into emerald silk that matched her calculating eyes. Cecilia presided over the meal like a queen holding court, her pearls gleaming in the candlelight. Damien sat beside his fiancée with the posture of someone enduring a lengthy prison sentence. Only, Oliver seemed genuinely relaxed, swirling wine in his glass with evident amusement. "So, Ms. Moretti," Cecilia began, her fork poised like a weapon, "tell us about your previous work. What notable families have you dressed?" The question was designed to expose Sienna's inadequacy. She'd worked with actresses, musicians, even a few politicians' daughters, but nothing that would impress people who vacationed with European royalty. "I've focused primarily on creating original designs for clients who want something unique," Sienna replied carefully. "My work has been featured in several independent publications." How quaint. Jade's smile could have cut glass. "I, of course, have worn only the finest designers. Valentino Eli Saab Zuhair Murad. I know what real luxury looks like, and you'll appreciate what Sienna can create," Damien said quietly. "Something that hasn't been seen on a dozen other brides." "I already told you what I want." Jade pulled out her phone again, shoving the image across the table. "This dress, the one from Milan, I want every detail replicated perfectly." Sienna studied the photo more carefully this time. The gown was magnificent, a masterpiece of engineering and artistry. It was also completely wrong for Jade's angular frame and would require materials that might not even be available on this timeline. "That dress took 6 months to create," Sienna said. "We have 6 weeks. And frankly, Ms. Montgomery, the silhouette wouldn't flatter your figure. You're tall and elegant. You'd look stunning in something more streamlined." The temperature dropped 20 degrees. "Are you suggesting," Jade's voice became dangerously soft, "that I don't know what looks good on my own body? I'm suggesting that I'm a professional designer, and part of my job is honesty." "Your job," Jade snapped, "is to do what you're told. I want that dress exactly as shown, or you can pack your bargain store luggage and leave tonight." "Jade, that's enough." Damien's voice carried an edge Sienna hadn't heard before. "No, it's not enough. You brought this nobody here without consulting me, and now she's insulting me at my own dinner table." "This is my dinner table," Damien said coldly. "My house. And Sienna's right, that dress would be a disaster on you." The silence that followed felt explosive. Jade's face flushed crimson, her hands trembling with rage. Cecilia's expression had gone from disapproving to genuinely alarmed. "How dare you," Jade whispered. "How dare you embarrass me like this?" "I'm trying to prevent you from embarrassing yourself in front of 500 guests, Damien." Cecilia interjected sharply. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss." Damien stood, his napkin dropping onto his untouched plate. Sienna is the designer. She creates something appropriate. If that's not acceptable, then perhaps we should reconsider this entire arrangement. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Jade's eyes widened, then narrowed into slits. Are you threatening to call off our wedding? I'm saying that if you can't trust me on something as simple as a dress, maybe we should examine whether this marriage is actually a good idea. Your father's will, Cecilia began. My father is dead. Damien's voice cracked like a whip, and I'm tired of living by his rules. He walked out, leaving chaos in his wake. Jade stood so abruptly her chair fell backward, then fled the room with a choked sob. Cecilia's face had gone white, her carefully maintained composure finally cracking.
Miss Moretti,
she said icily. You've been here less than 6 hours, and you've already destroyed this family's peace. I hope you're satisfied. I didn't intend. Your intentions are irrelevant. Stay in your room. Don't speak to my son. And if you value that contract, you'll remember your place. Cecilia swept away, leaving Sienna alone with Oliver, who'd watched the entire drama unfold with fascinated attention. He said cheerfully, refilling his wine glass that was more entertaining than usual. Typically, these dinners are just passively aggressive. You've elevated it to actual warfare. I should leave, Sienna said quietly. This was a mistake. Probably. But you won't leave, will you? Oliver studied her with those intelligent eyes. Because you need the money, and because my nephew is drowning, and you're too stubborn to watch someone drown without trying to help. This is my dinner table, Damien said coldly. My house. And Sienna's right, that dress would be a disaster on you. The silence that followed felt explosive. Jade's face flushed crimson, her hands trembling with rage. Cecilia's expression had gone from disapproving to genuinely alarmed. How dare you, Jade whispered. How dare you embarrass me like this? I'm trying to prevent you from embarrassing yourself in front of 500 guests. Damien, Cecilia interjected sharply. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. There's nothing to discuss. Damien stood, his napkin dropping onto his untouched plate. Sienna is the designer. She'll create something appropriate. If that's not acceptable, then perhaps we should reconsider this entire arrangement. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Jade's eyes widened, then narrowed into slits. Are you threatening to call off our wedding? I'm saying that if you can't trust me on something as simple as a dress, maybe we should examine whether this marriage is actually a good idea. Your father's will, Cecilia began. My father is dead. Damien's voice cracked like a whip, and I'm tired of living by his rules. He walked out, leaving chaos in his wake. Jade stood so abruptly her chair fell backward, then fled the room with a choked sob. Cecilia's face had gone white, her carefully maintained composure finally cracking. Ms. Moretti, she said icily, you've been here less than 6 hours, and you've already destroyed this family's peace. I hope you're satisfied. I didn't intend. Your intentions are irrelevant. Stay in your room. Don't speak to my son. And if you value that contract, you'll remember your place. Cecilia swept away, leaving Sienna alone with Oliver, who'd watched the entire drama unfold with fascinated attention. Well, he said cheerfully, refilling his wine glass, that was more entertaining than usual. Typically, these dinners are just passively aggressive. You've elevated it to actual warfare. I should leave, Sienna said quietly. This was a mistake, probably. But you won't leave, will you? Oliver studied her with those intelligent eyes. Because you need the money, and because my nephew is drowning, and you're too stubborn to watch someone drown without trying to help? I don't even know him. Neither does anyone else in this house. Oliver's humor faded. Damien was supposed to be an architect. Did you know that? He spent his entire childhood sketching buildings, dreaming about creating spaces that made people feel safe. Then Bernard died, and duty became more important than dreams. That's not my problem to solve, isn't it? You're here to design a wedding dress for a loveless marriage. It seems like everyone's problem. Sienna's phone buzzed. Message from Grace. Landlord moving forward with eviction? Need deposit by Monday? Or we lose everything Monday. 4 days away. I need to go to my room, Sienna said, standing on shaky legs. Thank you for dinner, Sienna. Oliver's voice stopped her at the door. The library. Second floor, west wing. Damien goes there when he can't sleep. It's just in case you're wandering around later and happen to get lost. She shouldn't. Everything about this situation screamed danger, professional, financial, and something else she didn't want to name. But at 2 a.m., when sleep proved impossible, Sienna found herself walking through dark hallways toward the west wing. The library was enormous. Walls lined with leather-bound books that probably cost more than her education. A fire burned low. In the hearth, and in a leather chair near the window, sat Damien, still dressed, staring out at the dark gardens. Couldn't sleep? His voice wasn't surprised. Apparently that's a common condition in this house. He gestured to the chair across from him. I owe you an apology. Shouldn't have put you in that position at dinner. You defended me. That's the opposite of something requiring an apology. I defended myself and used you as an excuse. There's a difference. He turned from the window, and in the firelight he looked younger, more vulnerable. The truth is, I've been looking for a reason to push back against this wedding, and you gave me one. That's not fair to either of us. No, it's not. He smiled, sad and honest. But very little about this situation is fair. My father built an empire on ruthless decisions and expected me to continue his legacy without question. My mother sees me as an extension of that empire, not as a person. And Jade. He paused. Jade wants to be Mrs. Blackwell more than she wants to know who Damien Blackwell actually is. Who are you? The question seemed to startle him. I don't know anymore. I used to think I did. Sienna shouldn't ask. It wasn't her business. But something in his expression, that drowning look she'd seen on the mansion steps, made her push forward. What did you want to be? Before all this? An architect. The answer came immediately, like he'd been waiting years for someone to ask. I wanted to design buildings that made people feel less alone, spaces with light and purpose. My father said it was a hobby, not a career for a Blackwell. Do you still sketch? He hesitated, then stood and walked to a bookshelf. He pulled down what looked like a leather journal and handed it to her. Don't tell anyone about these. Sienna opened the journal carefully. The pages were filled with architectural drawings, beautiful, intricate designs for homes and galleries and public spaces. Each sketch showed incredible talent and something more precious, hope. These are extraordinary, she breathed. Damien, you could actually, I can't. He took the journal back, closing it gently. That dream died with my father. This is my reality, now running his company, marrying for strategic purposes, becoming the man he always wanted me to be. What if the dress could be different? The words tumbled out before Sienna could stop them. Not what Jade wants or what your mother expects. What if it could tell a different story?
What story? Freedom.
Choice. All the things this marriage isn't. She leaned forward, excitement building despite her better judgment. Your father's will might control who you marry, but it doesn't control how you marry. The dress, the ceremony, the details, those could say something true. Damien stared at her like she'd suggested they'd burn down the mansion. You're proposing we sabotage my own wedding? I'm proposing we make it mean something. Sienna pulled out her sketch pad, her hands moving before her brain could object. Look, what if instead of crystals and excess, we used clean lines and unexpected details? Something that looks traditional from a distance but up close reveals complexity? Like you. She sketched rapidly a silhouette that was elegant but modern, with hidden architectural elements woven into the design. Strong lines, purposeful structure, beauty that didn't apologize for existing. Damien watched her work, and something shifted in his expression. Jade would never agree to this. Jade wants to make a statement. This would definitely make a statement. My mother would have a stroke. Your mother isn't wearing the dress. And what about you? He met her eyes directly. This could ruin your reputation. If they blame you for the dress, for causing problems, you might never work again.
No.
Sienna thought about her studio, locked and dark, about Grace fighting to save their equipment, about 10 years of work circling the drain. She should play it. Safe. Create the copycat dress Jade wanted. Take the money and run. But she looked at Damien's sketches, at dreams abandoned for duty, and saw herself reflected back. How many times had she compromised her vision to please clients? How many designs had she watered down to seem more commercial, more acceptable, more safe? "Let me worry about my reputation," she said. "The question is, do you have the courage to wear your truth, even if it's not what everyone expects?" Damien was quiet for so long that Sienna thought she'd pushed too far. Then he smiled, really smiled, and she saw the man he might have been if life had been kinder. "Let's design a revolution," he said. They worked until dawn, sketching and discarding ideas, arguing about proportions and meaning. When the first light broke through the library windows, they had something extraordinary addressed that honored tradition while quietly subverting it. Sienna knew she was playing with fire, knew this could destroy everything she'd worked for. But watching Damien's face come alive as they created something true, she couldn't bring herself to care. Some designs were worth the risk, even if the cost was everything. The morning after their library collaboration, Sienna woke to chaos. Her phone showed 17 missed calls from Grace, 6 angry emails from Cecilia's assistant, and a single text from an unknown number: "Meet me in the garden greenhouse at 10 a.m. Come alone." She barely had time to dress before someone pounded on her door. A young man in a state uniform stood there, nervous and apologetic. "Ms. Moretti, Mrs. Blackwell requests your immediate presence in the morning room." The morning room was all windows and judgment. Cecilia sat in a high-backed chair like a queen on a throne, Jade beside her wearing fury-like expensive perfume. Both women turned as Sienna entered, and the temperature seemed to drop. "Ms. Moretti," Cecilia's voice could have frozen fire. "I've been informed by the household staff that you spent the night in my son's company, alone, in the library." Sienna's stomach dropped. Of course they'd been seen. In a house this size, nothing stayed secret. "We were working on design concepts," Sienna said steadily. "That's why I'm here. That's not why you're here." Jade stood, her movements predatory. "You're here because you're cheaper than a real designer, and my fiancé wanted to feel rebellious. But let me make something crystal clear to me and as mine. This wedding will happen exactly as planned, and you will create exactly the dress I specified, or I will personally ensure you never work in fashion again. Is that a threat? It's a promise." Jade's smile was vicious. "My father owns 3 major fashion publications and has investments in 4 of the largest design houses. One phone call from me, and your little atelier won't just be evicted, it'll be blacklisted. You'll be making Halloween costumes in a strip mall." The words hit like physical blows. Sienna had known Jade was connected, but this level of power was terrifying. Everything she'd built, everything she'd sacrificed for, could be destroyed with a single vindictive phone call. "Jade, perhaps that's excessive," Cecilia began. "Is it? This woman has been here 2 days, and she's already trying to sabotage our wedding. She's filling Damien's head with ridiculous ideas about original designs and meaningful statements. This is a Blackwell wedding, not some artistic experiment." Artistic experiment. Sienna found her voice despite her fear. "I'm trying to create something beautiful. You're trying to make yourself important." Jade moved closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You're nobody, Sienna. A failed designer from a failed studio who got lucky with one invitation, but luck runs out. And when it does, you'll have nothing but debt and regret." Every word landed because they were partially true. Sienna was nobody. Her studio was failing. This invitation had been luck, or perhaps something more calculated, a convenient pawn in whatever game Damien was playing with his family.
"I won,"
Jade announced, turning to Cecilia. "Today, we'll hire someone competent." "The wedding is in 5 weeks," Cecilia said carefully. "Finding another designer now would be I don't care." She goes, "Or I call my father and explain how the Blackwell family hired an incompetent seamstress to ruin my wedding day." It was over. Sienna could see it in Cecilia's calculating expression, in the way she was already composing the dismissal. 5 weeks wasn't enough time to start over, and the scandal of a fired designer would be worse than having no designer at all. Sienna should feel devastated. Instead, she felt something unexpected relief. "Fine," Sienna said quietly. "I'll pack my things." She turned to leave, but Cecilia's voice stopped her. "Ms. Moretti, One moment. Your contract includes a termination clause. If you leave before completion, you forfeit all payment and owe us for expenses already incurred. Approximately $75,000. The number hit like a sledgehammer. $75,000 she didn't have. That wasn't just losing the job, it was financial destruction. That's not legal, Sienna breathed. It's in the contract you signed. Cecilia's smile was thin. So you have two choices. Stay and create exactly what Jade wants, or leave and declare bankruptcy. Your decision. Before Sienna could respond, the morning room door opened, and Damien walked in, dressed in a dark suit, his expression thunderous. What's going on here? We're terminating Ms. Moretti's services, Jade said triumphantly. She's clearly not suitable for, no. The single word cut through the room like a blade. Sienna stays. Damien, be reasonable, Cecilia began. I am being reasonable. For the first time in 6 months, I'm making a decision based on what I want instead of what's expected. Sienna is the designer. She created the dress we discussed last night. And if anyone has a problem with that, we can call off this entire wedding right now. The silence that followed was absolute. Jade's face had gone white, then red, her hands trembling with rage. You would choose her over me? Her voice cracked on the last word. I'm choosing honesty over performance, Damien said quietly. This marriage was arranged by our parents for business reasons. We both know it. But I won't stand at an altar in front of 500 people and pretend it's something it's not. If we're doing this, we're doing it truthfully. Truthfully. Jade laughed, sharp and broken. You want truth? Here's truth. I agreed to this marriage because being Mrs. Damien Blackwell opens doors that being Montgomery never could. I don't love you. I probably never could love someone as emotionally frozen as you are. But I would have been a perfect wife. I would have played the part flawlessly. And you're throwing that away for some fantasy about meaningful wedding dresses? The honesty was brutal and somehow liberating. Damien's expression didn't change, but something in his posture relaxed. Then we understand each other, he said. This is a business arrangement, so let's handle it like business. Sienna designs the dress. You wear it. We get married, fulfill my father's requirements, and then we live our separate lives in this massive house where we never have to see each other if we don't want to. That's the most depressing thing I've ever heard, Jade said. Damien agreed. It is. Jade stared at him for a long moment, then turned to Sienna with an expression that was no longer angry, just tired. Fine. Design whatever you want. But if I look ridiculous, I'm blaming you, not him. She left without another word. Cecilia stood slowly, her face a mask of controlled fury. Damien, your father would be. My father is dead, Damien interrupted gently. And I'm tired of living for a ghost. Sienna stays. The dress gets designed. Everything else works itself out. After Cecilia swept away in silent outrage, Sienna and Damien stood alone in the morning room. Sunlight streaming through windows that suddenly seemed less like barriers and more like possibilities. Thank you, Sienna, said quietly. But you just made your life infinitely more complicated. My life was already complicated. At least now it's complicated for something I actually care about. A wedding dress? Freedom. He smiled, sad and hopeful, simultaneously, even if it's just in the details. They spent the next 3 weeks in careful collaboration. Damien would slip designs under Sienna's door at night, architectural sketches that she'd translate into dress elements. Strong shoulders that suggested capability. A fitted bodice with hidden panels that represented complexity. A skirt that looked traditional from afar, but up close, revealed geometric patterns that whispered of buildings never built and dreams deferred. Grace managed to extend the studio's eviction. 1 more week, then another. Sienna worked 18-hour days, her fingers raw from hand-stitching details that no one but her and Damien would understand. Jade remained coldly professional, showing up for exactly 3 fittings and offering no opinions beyond, make sure it fits properly. She'd checked out of the process entirely, and Sienna couldn't blame her. The night before the wedding, Sienna put the final stitches into the dress. It hung on the mannequin in her workroom, beautiful and strange and honest. She'd poured everything into it, her own dreams of artistic freedom. Damien's abandoned architectural aspirations. Even Jade's complicated truth about ambition and social climbing. It wasn't the dress anyone expected. It was better. A knock on the door made her turn. Damien stood there, still in his clothes despite the late hour, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Thought you might want to toast your masterpiece," he said. "It's not a masterpiece. It's just honest." "Same thing." He handed her a glass, then studied the dress with something like wonder. "My father used to say that architecture was about controlling space, making people feel what you wanted them to feel. What do you want people to feel tomorrow? That some prisons are more beautiful than others," he smiled, "brittle and real. But also that beauty matters, even in captivity." They stood together in comfortable silence, looking at the dress that represented everything they couldn't say aloud. "What happens after tomorrow?" Sienna asked. "You get married, fulfill the will, and then what?" "Then I run a company I never wanted, live with a woman I don't love, and sketch buildings that will never be built." Damien's voice was matter-of-fact. "But at least I'll know that once, for 3 weeks, I made a choice that was mine." "That's not enough. It's more than most people get." Sienna's phone buzzed. Grace texting with good news for the first time in weeks. Deposit cleared. Landlord agreed to new lease. We're saved. The relief should have been overwhelming. Instead, Sienna felt empty. She'd gotten what she came for, the money, to save her studio. But somewhere in the past 3 weeks, this had stopped being about financial survival and started being about something more dangerous. "I should go," she said. "Big day tomorrow, Sienna." Damien caught her hand, his touch careful. "Thank you. For seeing me? Not many people do. You're hard to miss." He laughed, soft and sad. "Apparently I've been invisible my whole life." The wedding dawned cold and perfect. 500 guests filled the estate gardens. The ceremony staged like a production because that's what it was, performance. Art masquerading as commitment. Sienna stood at the back, watching Jade walk down the aisle in the dress they'd created together. And despite everything, it worked. Jade looked stunning, powerful, honest, in a way that traditional bridal gowns never could achieve. The geometric patterns caught the light, suggesting skyscrapers and ambition. The strong shoulders spoke of capability instead of softness. Damien's face when he saw her was worth everything: surprise, recognition, gratitude. They said their vows with appropriate solemnity. They exchanged rings that probably cost more than small countries. They kissed with the chaste politeness of business partners sealing a deal. And when it was over, when the guests erupted in applause and the couple walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, Sienna saw something unexpected. Jade was crying. Not sad tears, but something more complicated. Relief, maybe, or release. The reception was everything a Blackwell wedding should be: excessive, elegant, exhausting. Sienna spent most of it hiding in corners, accepting congratulations from guests who'd never remember her name near midnight. As the party wound down, she slipped into the library one last time. The fire was lit, the room empty, bottle of very expensive scotch sitting on the table with a note. "For the designer who taught me that even arranged marriages can have honest moments. Thank you for the revolution, even if it was just in the details." Sienna poured herself a glass and sat in the chair where she'd spent 3 weeks designing freedom into fabric. Tomorrow she'd return to Chicago, to her saved studio, to the life she'd almost lost. This chapter would close. She'd probably never see Damien Blackwell again, but she'd remember the lesson he'd taught her without meaning to. That compromise was necessary. But surrender wasn't. That beauty mattered even when trapped by circumstance. That sometimes the smallest rebellions were the most important. She raised her glass to the empty room. "To honest prisons," she whispered. And somewhere in the mansion, a man in a wedding suit stood at a window, sketching a building he'd never construct, married to a woman he'd never love, but holding on to one true thing: a dress that told the truth when everything else was lies. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was an honest one, and sometimes that was revolution enough.